Welcome to the Martin Bailey Photography Podcast. It's March 30, 2023, and this is episode 809. Welcome back, and before we jump into this episode, once again, I'm going to apologize for the noise in the background. I've still got hard disks whirring away, and I can't stop them. I will report on what I'm doing in the near future, but for now, if you can hear them whirring and clunking away in the background, I apologize. So we pick up the trail this week on my second Japan Winter Wildlife Tour for 2023, as the snow stopped falling while we were photographing the red crown cranes. But the cranes continued to dance and enjoy the fresh snow, as you can see in this first image for this episode. As I mentioned before, I love it when animals kick up snow or anything like that, and that really adds a wonderful dynamic element to the photograph. For most of these shots that I'll share today, the exposure was around a 1600th of a second, and I varied my aperture between around f10 and f14. In this case, I was using f14 because I was set up to capture two cranes in the scene together, which requires a deeper depth of field to get them both sharp. I could have opened up the aperture for this because there's only one bird in the shot, but I prefer to prepare for multiple subjects at this location because I prioritize those shots over images of single cranes. Case in point, with this next image, where a crane was showing off his huge wings to his partner as they danced, I was focused on the crane in the background, and even at f14 the crane in the foreground is very slightly out of focus. Although it's still acceptably sharp, it's definitely borderline. I took advantage of the fact that the birds in this next photo were both below the line between the snow and the trees, and I extended out the out-of-focus snow at the top of the frame to cover the background trees. I love the white-on-white look with these beautiful black and white birds, so this was an easy way to achieve that without them being closer and only surrounded by snow in real life. After a great second day with the cranes, we went on to a location where we can photograph the cranes flying to their roosting place in the river, and as the light fades, it's a great opportunity to do some panning shots with these beautiful birds. Here is one of my favorite panning shots from this session, as the bird flew over a dark patch of trees with snow on some of the branches to create a mottled background. I added a bit of darkened circular vignette to this image to de-emphasize the flecks of white in the background, as I feel it looks better with them toned down a little. My shutter speed was a 50th of a second to allow the movement of the crane's wings to register along with the flowing background. My ISO was 320 and my aperture was f14 again, as this time I was trying to get a longer shutter speed rather than being concerned with depth of field. The following day we moved on to Lake Kusharo, where we'd spend a further 2 days photographing the Hooper swans. The highlight of these 2 days is getting a chance to do some panning with the swans as the light drops at the end of the day. I continued to get lots of shots of single swans close up, but I also enjoyed getting multiple swans in the frame this year more than before. Here is an example where the foreground swan is nice and sharp and the 3 additional swans in the background completely blurred. Here also is a group of 4 swans, but this time they are still running along the water in a line as they passed by. Again, for these large birds, I was using a 50th of a second shutter speed for these shots, as that is enough to blur the wings and create some beautiful texture in the water and ice in the background as I moved the camera with the birds. As you can see, once again, only one of the swans has a sharp head. Their heads move as they fly, so the success ratio for this kind of shot is low. The chances of getting more than one of them with sharp heads is even lower. The following morning we had a mist bank over the lake leading out from the edge of the trees in the distance, which added a lovely additional element to this photograph of two whooper swans flying in. I like how the first one of the two is looking down, almost as though he's deciding where on the ice would be a good place to land. More panning shots at the end of our second day with the swans brought a stroke of luck. As you can see in this next image, I got 3 of the 4 heads sharp in a vertical group. Here an aperture of f16 not only helped me to get a longer shutter speed for the panning effect, but was definitely a help in getting all of these swans' heads sharp at the varying distances. Let's look at one last panning shot. Although I have so many from this second day, I could keep going for another 20 or more. This is a single bird, but I caught it as the swan water skied to a halt as it started to pass by where I was kneeling with my camera. Like last week, I've gone through these images relatively quickly, and I can concentrate on the sea eagles in the final episode of this series if we finish the swans today. So let's look at 3 more images, bringing our total for today to 12 images. On our second morning at the lake, we had a bit of mist again, but the fly-ins were like nothing I'd seen at this location. In this shot, we can see 2 separate lines of 8 swans as both groups flew towards the beach where we were standing. I waited until the swans in the second group were all over the trees, making them stand out more, before capturing this image, which is probably one of my favourites from the trip. It's actually really difficult to decide which photos to finish with, as I have so many that I love, but here is one of 8 swans flying over the distant rim of the Caldera Lake. You won't be able to see this in the web version, but as the mountains sharpen up as they leave the mist along the bottom of the frame, you can see all of the individual white trees which are covered with hoarfrost from the mist and morning cold. This would make a great print, maybe even cropped down to a panorama. So I've loaded it onto my wall art website with several other shots from this shoot. If you're interested, check out the Japan Wildlife Gallery at martinbailey.art. One last image that I wanted to share from Kusharo Lake is one of 2 whooper swans with their wings open and honking together. This is something they do a lot just after they land, and it seems to be partly celebrating a safe landing and partly announcing their arrival to the group already at the location. Remember that you can see shooting information for all images embedded in my posts by clicking on the image to open them in the lightbox. And the short link for all posts is the episode number preceded by mbp.ac. So this episode will be at mbp.ac/809. The shooting details will appear below the image for any image that you open in the lightbox. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there for today. I hope you enjoyed this second episode of my final Japan Winter Workshop Travelogue series, which will conclude in part 3 that will be released next week. If you are considering joining us on a future tour, please check out our tours and workshops at mbp.ac/tours or visit mbp.news to sign up for our newsletters to be alerted when something new is posted about new tours. Thanks very much for listening today. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider supporting us on Patreon, which comes with various benefits depending on your contribution, from basic support and access to the MVP community to full-blown photography mentorships. For further details, check out our Patreon page at mbp.ac/Patreon. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter and LinkedIn, and links to everything that I'm up to are at martinbaileyphotography.com, so do drop by and take a look. I'll be back next week with another episode, that final episode of this series, but in the meantime, you take care and have a great week, whatever you're doing. Bye bye.